Welcome to the National Newspaper Publishers Association's Let It Be Known on this Tuesday, January 18th, 2022. A new bill filed in the Florida legislature would allow video and audio recordings in school classrooms, forcing teachers to wear microphones and allowing parents to review video of any incidents. HB 1055 is sponsored by Florida Rep. Bob Ramel, a Republican out of Naples. It would allow school districts to install video cameras in classrooms for the purposes of recording an incident, which it defines as abuse or neglect of a student by an employee or another student. Parents of a child involved in an incident must be allowed to review the video within a week, with the stipulation that the identity of other students who aren't involved must be blurred. Teachers in schools that adopt cameras will be required to wear microphones. Cameras must be placed at the front of the classroom, capable of monitoring video and audio from all areas except a restroom or other changing areas. We discuss all of that and more this morning on Let It Be Known. This morning we have Professor Christopher Emdin, the Naslin Endowed Chair in Curriculum and Teaching at the University of Southern California, and NPA Education Program Manager, Dr. Elizabeth Primus, and Westside Gazette publisher, Bobby Henry, and from the Jacksonville Free Press, we have Lynn Jones. But first, of course, let's get to the news headlines of the day. With President Joe Biden's approval ratings faltering in large part because of the failure by Democrats to push through vital legislation, political preferences in the United States have taken a shift. A new Gallup poll released on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day revealed that Americans' political party preferences dramatically shifted by the end of 2021 from a 9-point Democratic advantage to a 5-point Republican edge. Further, 2021 saw the most significant percentage of U.S. adults identify as political independents. Gallup asked all Americans it interviewed whether they identify politically as a Republican, a Democrat, or an independent. Researchers asked independents whether they had leaned more toward the Republican or Democratic Party. According to Gallup, the combined percentage of party identifiers and leaners measures the relative strength of the two parties politically. The 9-point Democratic advantage in the first quarter and the 5-point Republican edge in the fourth quarter are among the largest Gallup has measured for each party in any quarter since it began regularly measuring party identification and leaning in 1991. Also in the news this morning, Baltimore State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby doubled down on her proclamation that she is innocent. Attorney A. Scott Bolden and supporters of the embattled Mosby held a press conference yesterday to announce that they are prepared to fight criminal charges leveled by the federal government against Mosby. Bolden said he wants to go to trial before this year's election, which Mosby seeks re-election. For her part, Mosby stated that without equivocation, I am innocent on the charges levied against me. I have done nothing wrong, and I am confident that I will be exonerated and my name will be cleared. A grand jury indicted Mosby on 4 felony counts last week. She faces charges of perjury and making false statements. Federal prosecutors allege she lied about suffering COVID-19 hardships to withdraw money without penalty from her retirement account and falsified information on loan applications for vacation homes in Florida. A. Scott Bolden, of course, is the corporate counsel for the National Newspaper Publishers Association. Well, cameras and microphones in school. What is going on with our schools, especially down in Florida? Let's bring on our special guest this morning, Professor Christopher Emdin, also NMPA Education Program Manager, Dr. Elizabeth Primus, Bobby Henry, the publisher of the Westside Gazette, and Lynn Jones of the Jacksonville Free Press. Also, joining us is the president and CEO of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, Dr. Benjamin Chavis. Dr. Chavis, good morning.
Good morning to everybody. I'm at the National Airport, so I'm only going to be on momentarily. I want to thank all of our guests This is a special issue, education of our children, and thank you for Stacy for taking the lead on this.
Absolutely. And so let's kind of unravel this a little bit. Let's go out to our Florida folks. Bobby Henry. Bobby, this bill, I'm sure, is causing a firestorm of controversy, not just in Florida, but across the country.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. First of all, and Stacy, I didn't get the memo about the hat, the fedora again, so pardon me. But on this issue of cameras in the classroom, as in with all things political, you got to follow the money. I'm trying to figure out who is this camera company that's going to put these cameras there. Then again, the two representatives that brought this bill forth, both of them are originally from New York, and they both live in of course, heavily populated Republican areas exclusively. So that brings up another issue. Then who will look at these videos? Who will be able to see? And I know that COVID has caused a lot of change in behavior, change in classroom structure. And so this lends itself to a whole bunch of stuff. Will the kids act out because of the cameras? Of what will happen? It's just so much involved with this. I'm just really taken aback. I can understand wanting to see who perhaps may have a gun or may have drugs or whatever. But when you just cast a broad scope on the entire atmosphere, you open the door for Big Brother to be everywhere. So I'm worried about it, seriously.
And Lynn Jones over in Jacksonville, what's the feeling in that side of Florida?
Well, so far we did speak to some of the educators here, and currently they do have cameras in school. Cameras are for security, but not necessarily in the classroom. So I think it's a privacy issue, if anything. I mean, the teachers, the microphones, you'll be able to hear everything that they're saying in the classroom. And one of the educators were stating that the parents are not engaged anyway. I mean, they can't come up to the school, but with the cameras, again, I think it'll be more scrutiny and the polarization of it, number one. I mean, you're in school and then you have the cameras. So now the students, everyone will have to watch what they say. I mean, it'll be an all on visual of everything that's going on in the classroom. So but then too, it could stop a lot of things too. Maybe there's someone with a gun in the class. Maybe there's some other issues going on in the class that the teacher may be able to disrupt at the same time. So I think there's a lot of issues going on with this. And as Bobby stated, who's the camera company? Who will be doing this? When will we be able to see the footage? Is this after a fight? And how much footage? I think they said that one of the school board said that they'll be shooting at least 6 hours of camera time if those cameras are put into the classroom.
Well, let's go to our educators. Dr. Primus, you a lifelong educator and you've seen a lot. Is this an assault on privacy?
So when I read the law, the first thing that jumped into my mind was the FERPA, which is the Family Privacy Act that Gerald Ford signed into law many years ago. And it made me think that we are exposing our children to their privacy being disrupted. Right now, in many school districts across the country, even to take a picture of your class as the classroom teacher, you have to have a signed waiver from every parent saying, I can take a picture of your child in my classroom. So I can't even take a picture of my child, my class, without permission from the parents. And every parent must sign. Otherwise, that child cannot sit in the class group picture that I'm just documenting that this was my class I had in 2022. So I question the privacy. I question the fact that they can blur people's faces a week later, but what's to say that they're not going to use it in some kind of way that then takes away the privacy of a child to learn, how they learn, how a teacher teaches. we have some horrible teachers, we have some horrible kids, we have some great teachers and some great kids. But the knife cuts both ways. So you're not going to just see faux pas by a student or by a teacher. You're going to see every blemish that goes on, as well as the great things. And are they going to do anything that promotes the great teachers because they saw them in the classroom handling all situations that a teacher has to handle? But the first thing that crossed my mind was FERPA and the Privacy Act for Children.
Yeah, and Professor Emden, we again appreciate you joining us again on Let It Be Known. Certainly a couple of things. One, we want your insight on that, but also, if you will, comment on what David Youngblood, one of our viewers, says. He says, I'm firmly convinced teachers, doctors, and nurses should walk off the job. We are allowing Facebook doctors, nurses, and teachers to determine our futures.
I think that's a profound statement. First of all, good morning, everybody. It's an honor to be here with you, and an honor to be here with this esteemed panel of brilliant folks this morning. And next time, good brother, I will make sure I send a hat to you, Bobby Henry. You can have the appropriate attire for our conversation. So listen, you know, this conversation about the videotapes in the classroom, we have to also interrogate who's bringing this to the fore. So Ramel is the person who's bringing this to the fore, to the general conversation. And two things that we have to note about this guy. The first one is, brother, you ran a restaurant before you got into a public office. There's no instance where a person who is a restaurateur should be making any conversations or have any lead time in determining what happens in classrooms. And I think that we're in this point collectively in the country where we allow anybody who has political office to be able to become an expert in teaching and learning in K through 12, when in reality, those folks have nothing to do with what's going on in the classroom. That's number one. Number two, we also have to trace this gentleman's history. This is a person who just months prior had made a general conversation for the public in Naples, Florida, around the banning of critical race theory and any approaches to teaching and learning that they deem as being an interrupter to good teaching and learning. He said verbatim, we need to focus less on these larger issues and more on math, English, and social studies, as though educators cannot teach the content area as well as teach about the history of this nation. And so what he's trying to do with this bill is not videotape classrooms so we could highlight what's going well, or videotape classrooms so that we can make sure the teachers are doing the right thing. He wants to create a fear tactic. This is a person who wants a banning of any conversation about the true history of this country. If you say racism in the classroom, you're in trouble. If you say class, if you say injustice, if you say police brutality. And so they're trying to create a mechanism to be able to watch classrooms so they can identify teachers who are teaching young people about the truth of what's going on in this nation. So we're not recording for the benefit of teachers. We're not recording for the benefit of students. We're not even benefiting for the benefit of Black folks. We're benefiting for the purpose of ensuring that conversations in classrooms do not interrogate the issues that affect the lives of Black and brown bodies who are undergoing severe oppression in the current era. Sir. And so if we recognize that first, then we can start having a really more important conversation about the other implications. Now, here are the other implications, just to be clear. If Ramel's bill goes as it is indicated, he has the power to be able to identify who he thinks should be appropriate for teaching not just white children in Naples, that's 71% white, only 4% Black, but he's making a bill for the entire Florida. You see what I'm saying? So they want to protect the whiteness in Naples, and then they want to be able to critique the instruction in other parts of Florida at the same time. And we must fight this tooth and nail. Now, this is coming from an educator who actually advocates for us to be able to record in classrooms. We record in classrooms so the video can go back to the teacher, so the teacher can go back on their own and make sure that they're more effective in how they teach young folks. But videotaping classrooms for the sake of making a teacher better, and videotaping classrooms for the sake of creating a police state where the expressive nature of teaching and learning, the nimbleness of teaching and learning is being policed by Republicans who are, and look, y'all got me hot this morning.
Listen, I am so glad.
I'm sorry, can I just say one more thing? Ramel also is a person who is against the policing of mask mandates. He's against vaccine mandates. So you want the freedom to be able to harm us biologically, but you want to be able to critique the teachers from giving the instruction that intellectually supports the learning of all young folks. It's the ultimate hypocrisy, and we should be vehemently opposed to this, and we should ensure that folks like this have no opportunity to have conversations about what goes on in K-12 education.
This is why we love Dr. Emden, because I didn't need the caffeine this morning. He just gave me the espresso shot right there. There's no question.
Drop the mic.
But you know, Bobby, going along with that though, when you put all that together, and we just had a conversation on this show about schools and libraries banning Black books or books by Black authors. And so you put that in context in what Dr. Emden just said. Bobby, what do you get out of this?
You know, what I get out of this is the fear of the browning of America. You know, Dr. Chris said it all. I mean, he has left just a little bit that we may want to look into just a little deeper. You know, what I get from this, again, before we can even go on campus and take pictures or for news stories or whatever, you know, the things pop up like, well, this person may be in hiding, you know, this child has been abducted before, and the father or the mother may be after this child. So, but now if you allow this to happen, you open the door. You know, their faces are everywhere. Anybody that wants to find that child has now a video to do it. But now again, there was a situation here in Broward County where the teacher allegedly, well, not allegedly, the teacher called the kid the N-words, the nigga several times, and they had it on video and audio. Now, when it came up for review, you know, the audio and the video was edited. So, you know, you can do some damage, you know, some serious damage with this video, 6 hour, 24 hours, whatever, using it, you know. And again, Dr. Chris pointed out point blank what is happening. To be able to bring charges against those educators who teach the truth, you know, when you got it on video. So I hope I answered the question. I know I was.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Lynn Jones, Sharon Green writes in that this is way too much. I think she's going along with Dr. Emden, and who wouldn't, right? She says this is way too much watching. This will affect the development, learning, and how they teach our kids. Mm-hmm. What's the perspective from you on that?
Well, I have to agree on the critical race theory. I think they are making sure that they can see the teachers in the classroom and who's teaching what. And another thing that one of the school board members said is a lot of these issues are unfunded mandates. So now you put this in place, and now the districts have to pay for this. They have to pay for the cameras. They have to find funds to go ahead and to even make this mandate official. So with the critical race theory, and especially here in Florida, something that they do not want taught in the schools. So they're making this an issue. At the same time, we're in a whole different realm when it comes to teaching in the classroom, number one. We're in a whole different realm. The students are different, the teachers are different, and also we don't have enough African-American teachers in the classroom. So that will put a damper on who the school districts hire when it comes to teaching at the same time. So I think they're making this a issue. Again, black and white depends on the community. And you were just talking about the audio being edited out. So who knows who will receive that tape and be able to give it to who needs to review it. And then you still may have some issues with that.
Yeah, Dr. Primus, you know, this is obviously we have stated, this is a law from a Republican. Is it more of the policies of former Education Secretary Betsy DeVos, who many say single-handedly decimated education in America? Is it more of the same there?
So first of all, I want to start off by saying no school is teaching critical race theory. That is a graduate level course that talks about the laws that have been put in place that eliminate possibilities for Blacks. It's like the redlining. It's like no scholarships. It's like college universities. It's like things that repeat themselves. No school is teaching that. They're teaching Martin Luther King. They're teaching you know, they're not teaching critical race theory. They're not teaching how laws have been put in place to impact Black and brown people. So let's start there. But the next thing is Betsy DeVos decimated public schools by not funding. She is a private school person, and private schools do not have cameras, and legislation does not impact them having cameras. They are private. As somebody said on the news yesterday, erroneously, that the parents own the schools. No, the parents don't own the school building, so they don't. Because you come and go, you're just a renter. You go through. Mm-hmm. But the bottom line is Betsy DeVos really did not do much of anything to improve education. And what she did as her non-leadership in the Department of Ed really didn't impact. It was all the other Republicans going around. So just throwing her name around doesn't do anything. She has no knowledge of what education is. She doesn't have an education herself. So let me just say that.
Nice and blunt. We love that, Dr. Primus.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. This first thing.
No, we love that.
Let me just say the key thing is Republicans have been trying to teach history, everything their way since the beginning of time. And to the victor goes the pen. And they're fighting against giving up the pen that tells the truth. You know, it took the cameras in the classroom. I helped develop the National Board Certification for elementary and middle school reading and English language arts teachers. And yes, teachers videotape their classes in order for them to look at themselves to see, what did I do? What could I have done better? Who did I reach? Who did I ignore? How do I make my classroom inclusive so that I teach to every child in the room? It was not put on full blast. And even when they sent their videotapes to the National Board to be reviewed, the children in the room's parents had to sign a release to say that they could be in that video. Otherwise, you couldn't use that class at all. They sent it to a small group that reviewed it and could not publicize anything of whether they did this right or that wrong or this. So it's a different thing. It's for self-critique. What they're talking about in Florida now is not for self-critique. It's for, as Dr. Chris said, it's for keeping people in line to make sure you don't teach something I tell you you cannot teach in a public school, whether it's the truth or not.
So, yeah, that's a great point. Obviously, Dr. Primus, Dr. Chris, is that a good part of this, that they want to make sure that this so-called critical race theory, like Dr. Primus said, they don't teach it in public schools, but is it to make sure that Black history is not being taught?
Yes, Dr. Primus is just so on point. I mean, on point like a decimal on this one. And this is what I want us to be clear about on this theme. You know, people they're raising up this idea of critical race theory, which is CRT. And they know it's not being taught in K through 12. They are aware that it's not being taught, even though they're pushing back against it. But what they want to replace is another CRT, which is culturally relevant teaching. You see, if you construct a rules, make a critical race theory, you know, create a boogeyman, and then underneath that, you attach culturally relevant teaching, knowing the history of Black folks, knowing the experience of young folks right now, teaching them to be critical. These folks they say they want kids to focus on math, English, and social studies, which requires criticality. They want criticality in math so you can ask deep questions. They want criticality in reading so you can pose an understanding of the text. They want criticality in social studies, but they don't want criticality in race. They want you to be critical and thoughtful in everything in the world, but not about race. And so this is about attaching culturally relevant teaching to critical race theory, make critical race theory the boogeyman, and construct a weapon of mass distraction. So while we're distracted by this conversation about critical race theory that ain't really going on, they're underhandedly banning a culturally relevant teaching that focuses on the needs of Black and brown children. And so this is a big ruse. And if we're not thoughtful, you know, we'll fall for it. Because here's the thing, before they can implement this thing, and we talk about the funding is going to be ridiculous. Who's going to watch the video? Ain't nobody figured that out yet. They say delete the video after 3 months, but we don't know where you're going to be digitally safely record these things. So the whole thing is a debacle that is going to be very tough to implement. But they've been successful in that they're going to keep us battling against something that don't really exist. So they can underhandedly ensure that our teachers are so fearful that all they teach is what's handed over in the curriculum. And let me tell you this, they're disskilling teachers. Listen, don't teach race, don't teach class, don't teach ethnicity, and don't be creative. But do exactly what's in this lesson plan. And I'm gonna videotape you to make sure that you're doing exactly what's in this lesson plan. And we know that a teacher that cannot bend themselves to the needs of young folks, that cannot use examples from the kids' real lives, that can't talk about history and our ancestry. Any teacher who loses the ability to be nimble loses the ability to teach. And what happens now is when you render teachers disposable, you can put anybody in there, put a robot in there. You know, they even talk about put a bus driver in there who has no skills. And so this is also an underhanded attempt to de-skill the art and craft of teaching. So don't be fooled by the Western weapon of mass distraction. It ain't about critical race theory. It's about culturally relevant teaching. And it's not about this bill at all. It's about the underhanded mechanism to assault educators from being able to be nimble enough to meet the needs of particularly Black and brown children.
And it goes to what David Youngblood's been writing in about why teachers just don't walk out of frustration, because we know teachers are underpaid, underappreciated. They, in a lot of cases, they are raising the kids that they're teaching. They're providing more than just books and pencils and pens, but they're providing a place where they can be pretty much guardians. Bobby, a lot of pressures on teachers. And now they're dealing with, they may have to deal with this, as Dr. Chris says, a problem that doesn't exist. Now they got to deal with that.
Right. You know, I'm so amazed at Dr. Chris. I'm ready to go back in the classroom. You can teach me, brother. You know, I was watching a football game last night, and the coach won 2 challenges. You know, he had a chance to throw the red flag. They can go back and look at the video. Unfortunately, for this situation, we don't have any red flags. We can't throw them. You know, it's best for us to get ahead of the game right now. And yeah, teachers are underpaid and overworked and have a tremendous responsibility because they are shaping the future. Now, somebody once said, if you want to be remembered for a year, you know, you make a good movie. You want to be remembered for 10 years, you write a book. But if you want to be remembered forever, you teach the children. So that is what is being attacked here, is the ability to teach the, what do you call it, Dr. Chris, cultural, that CRT, that
culturally relevant teaching. Yes, brother.
There you go. So that is what is on display right now. The fact that the browning of America, the educating of this race that we try to keep down for so long, but doggone it, these Negroes keep coming back. So we got to find a way to do this. And the classroom is the last effort that they have to keep a race down. And damn it, they're trying to do everything they can to do it. And those cameras will help precipitate this need for them to hold this power down. So yeah.
And Lynn Jones, you know, earlier we talked about, Dr. Primus mentioned that in order to even get a picture of a child, you need the parents' written permission, right? So where are we going exactly?
Well, I mean, we have a lot of issues here, from that CRT to where it's going. I mean, taking a photo. I mean, just in the class period, I think that currently the students are battling against the teachers. Number one, for me, the students are battling against the teachers because the teachers do not have the opportunity to teach what they're supposed to teach, even though if they are teaching only the Martin Luther King and not the critical race theory, as she was stating, that it's taught, it's a college course and so forth, but the options that are available. And again, if you're talking to these students, and there may be some things, back to the privacy issue, because there could be some things that you might say, and I know you've said it, and I've done it in the classroom myself and said some things under my breath. So basically, you will have to make sure that you're on top of your toes too, speaking to these students. So it's going to be a no win-win on from the students to the teachers.
Yeah, Dr. Primus, we know that we're still going through the pandemic. There's a lot of challenges there. Students and teachers alike have to deal with that. So what else is this putting on teachers and students?
Basically, we're telling teachers, you are now the caregiver. You're now the educator. In many cases, you're the doctor because you have to make sure that those kids are feeling well, take temperatures, whatever else that they have to do. When I was in the classroom, I was dressing my kids. I literally had clothes for those kids who didn't come to school properly dressed. I had a refrigerator in my classroom. I had to feed my kids because if they got there too late for the cafeteria to feed them and the cafeteria wouldn't feed them after a certain time, they ate in my classroom. So we are now, and let me just say, my kids used to call me Miss Dr. Primus or Mama. There was either Miss Dr. Primus or I was Mama. And kids that weren't even in my classroom, never been in my classroom, called me Mama. And they still today bring their kids to my house to trick or treat so they can meet Mama. But the bottom line is we're being asked to do everything that a parent used to do. Everything that the doctor used to do, everything that the school used to do is on the shoulders of the teacher and the teacher alone. We've talked for many years about how many teachers went into their pockets in order to pay for school supplies. And now we're going to be talking about how many teachers died in order to make sure COVID was no mask, and how many teachers left because they're not going to be videotaped because they don't have the proper wardrobe to be on camera for everybody to see them because they gained a little weight or whatever. So we're really going to be looking at a group of people who are leaving en masse to find something else to do. My mother was a school teacher. My mother's mother was a school teacher. My father's mother was a school teacher. And they used to say, many are called, but few are chosen. And more choosing to leave the profession.
Yeah. Well, joining us now is someone who have an opportunity to vote on this legislation. I understand Representative Patricia Williams from Florida is with us. Good morning, Representative Williams.
Good morning, and thank you for allowing me to join in. I am traveling at this time, so I have been cut off 5 times since the show has started. So if I get disconnected in between, it's because of the travel that I am, the area that I'm in, and the internet that's available. And yes, it's so that I will have the opportunity not only to vote on this bill 1055 once, twice, but I have the opportunity to vote on it 3 times. I have been chosen for this session to be one of the members that have 4 education committees. So it gives me the opportunity to see a lot of things that goes on in education. Yeah, Number one, our Broward County School Board is, they have some concerns about it. Number 2, I have concerns about it. Number 3, I am a firm believer that we have teachers in our classroom to teach our children. And for me to tell a teacher how to go about teaching that class is just beyond my thoughts. Another main point is the teacher would have to wear a microphone in the classroom. The student has the opportunity to opt out of being recorded. The parent has the opportunity of having their child to opt out of being recorded, but the teacher do not have an opportunity to opt out on any of this. Those are some of the concerns that I have. And also, it's only being put forth for public schools. So if this is for the safety of our students, why not put it forth for all the schools?
Well, we're hearing it directly from Representative Patricia Williams. We have 2 of our publishers from Florida, from the state of Florida, Bobby Henry and Lynn Jones here. So I'll let them jump in with you, Congresswoman.
Yeah.
I was thinking that also as far as the districts are concerned, they're talking about public schools, but what districts will the microphones, and then too, this could become a reality show. If anything, it may become a reality show within the classroom.
Yeah, I agree with you, man, on that, because we know Pookie. If Pookie is having a bad day, him and Leroy gonna create a scene to
no doubt
to make it to the video. And that's another scary thing, because of the changes that have taken place due to COVID in the classrooms. You have homework, you have class assignments that have not been done months and months at a time. And you have, so you have a whole brand new way of trying to teach kids who have not had any supervision, who have been at home for almost 2 years by themselves to rip and run. So the attendance in school, you're trying to play catch up with that, and then the behaviors that come from that, the authoritative neglect. Now you got kids, even from the other side of the fence, you got kids who have not been supervised or have had structure. So when you try to create structure, you're gonna get a whole lot of stuff that you can make a reality show out of. And I just think that's not fair when it comes to true education.
And
Representative
another thing,
Williams.
since Bobby, you brought this up, when we had the bill about Hope Scholarship, it was supposed to be to take the child that's being bullied out of school. But what we do understand is when they put forth these bills, it start out at one thing, but by the time it hits the floor, it's a totally different than what they present the bill as being. The Hope Scholarship gives the opportunity of a parent to pull their child out of public school system and place them in a private school on taxpayer dollars if they feel their child is being bullied. The question came from the Democratic Party is, why not remove the child that's doing the bullying? Take the bad seed out of the public school system and put them in your private institution that you want them to go to. No, they want to take the cream of crop, put them in the schools that they choose, but they're not having a problem with the students in the public school system. Leave the child that's doing the bullying in the public school system and continue on bullying other schools so that they can pull the ones that's receiving the bullying toward them to go into their private institution and being paid for on taxpayer dollars. That's how these bills starts out. We see them as one thing, and if you don't read inside of this bill and try to get inside of their head, that's why it's so important when we are voting for people, when you have relationships, you grow to know some of these people that you're working along with, you know their train of thoughts and how they're thinking and how they are pushing for certain things. This is one of those bills right here. It starts out looking.
What kind of support does this bill have? Is it likely to pass?
Well, it's going to pass because of the numbers that we have. There's 120 representatives. 78 are Republican and 42 are Democrats, minus the 2 that we lost. So whatever they have and whatever they want to push forth, yes, it's going to pass. So we can get ready for that. We can gear up for it. It's going to pass because that's something that they are pushing for. Only thing we have at this particular time is our voice and people like you that's concerned about what's going on in our school system. And I want to say I take my hats off to all the educators. I just can't imagine me being in a classroom now with all of these things that's going on and all of the rules they're pushing for. You're taking away the authority of the person that's in there. If a child can come in the classroom and tell the teacher what to do, why are they there?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's bring back our educators. Dr. Chris, you heard from the Congresswoman. Your reaction?
I mean, such profound points. But she hit the nail on the head when she said, you don't look at the bill. You look at the history of the person who's behind the bill. You look at the conversations they've had in private and in public. And you look at their decisions around other issues. And that will let you know what the implications are if the law is being put in place. And so she's dead on it. If we look at this gentleman, Ramel, we know what he's about. And I want to underscore the point from earlier. These people said they want the freedoms to either wear masks or not. They want the freedom to be able to put on a vaccine or not. They want the freedom to be able to make their own decisions. But they don't want to give educators the freedom to be able to teach. And that's the ultimate hypocrisy. The ultimate hypocrisy is if you demand something for yourself and then you say for that person, they don't need that kind of freedom. And the other point about siphoning in certain populations into certain schools, and this idea about, taking the bully and moving them in different spaces. This is a contemporary iteration with the same thing. They want to be able to create a situation where they identify who gets to teach. If a person teaches that really connects with young folks and talks about a history and talks about real education, they can say that person is ill-equipped and make them leave. They can find somebody else who's a robot and put them in the classroom. The idea here is to en masse move out all the teachers who really connect with Black and brown children, all the teachers who really have a passion and a love. Them teachers like Dr. Privis who say, come here, baby, let me give you something to eat. Come here, baby, let me give you a hug. They want those kind of teachers to be ushered out of the classroom so they can replace them with these lifeless robots who don't care about our babies. And all that's going to mean over time is that our children are the ones that suffer.
Yeah, and Dr. Primus, first, Dr. Primus, I want to relay that Dr. Nicole McDaniel says we need more teachers like Miss Dr. Primus. But Dr. Primus, we're making no mistake. This is a Florida bill. However, we've seen, even with the voting rights, right? It happened in one state. Now it's in a number of states, right? The voter suppression laws. And so the rest of the country has to pay attention to this, right?
Absolutely. So it starts off as a trickle, and one tests the water to see, did we get that through? And then all the rest of them come following through the gate. So then it becomes the floodwaters. And so what we see going on in Florida right now is what we will see going on in Texas next week. It's what we will see going on in Nevada the week after, in Arizona and Michigan. And so it is going to continue. You know, the Common Core state standards was one of the first things they did to try to say, you can only teach what I tell you to teach. And that's one of the reasons why the social studies standards took many years to pass, because they couldn't agree with being able to teach history the way it really was. And so many states wouldn't pass it because they gave too much credit to what Blacks contributed, what Asians contributed, what Hispanics contributed to the building of the country. So they didn't get it through right away. We also didn't get science through right away because they wanted to say, we only believe in creationism. So you can't teach evolution, I mean. So we couldn't teach that it started off with this out of the water and then they evolved. So you couldn't teach evolution. And those two standards for national took years beyond what math and reading took, because we were trying to control what the narrative was. And that's what we're doing still. They didn't get enough control with the Common Core state standards, and now they're trying to control it with the cameras. They're trying to control it with the critical race theory. They're trying to control. So they want you to only teach what they want taught, so that ignorance is bliss. They're happy if they don't know, and they certainly don't want us to know what the truth is.
And, you know, yeah. I want to say this really quickly also, because the representative said this, you know, in those private schools, in those other institutions, that there's no videotape, there's no requirements for what are you teaching. I don't need to know what your curriculum is. I don't even know what your books are. I don't need to know what your lesson plans are. I assure you that the most horrendous revisionist histories that you could ever imagine is being taught there. So they want to control and videotape and record what happens in public schools that are trying to push for understanding the realities that are going on in America. And in them private schools, they got books that are talking about like slavery never really existed. They've got textbooks in those schools talking about the rise of white supremacy and power, and why it's essential for us to keep that same history. So you want to videotape what's going on in these schools, and then in your schools, you want to have the most horrendous and racist and underhanded and revisionist histories being taught without anybody watching. And at the end of it, what you're going to have is those folks in those private schools graduating thinking they get the truth, our children being robbed of the truth, and it's a collective attempt to erase an authentic reality of the history of this nation as it relates to subject matter, because this also affects math, English, and social studies. You could teach math in a way that reinforces bias, and those folks are doing what they want in private and then trying to police our public school teachers to not teach reality.
Representative Williams, a couple of things. One, are there any bills or any talk of a bill that would actually support teachers and the better education for people of color? And with that in mind, the National Newspaper Publishers Association's Executive Administrator Claudette Perry writes in, her question is, how are Black and brown people in Florida reacting to this bill? Are they mobilizing?
Bill as of yet. session just started on Tuesday of last week, so this is our second week. There only been a select few bills that went forth. I haven't heard anything about 1055 being put on the agenda to be heard as of yet, but I am suspecting that it will come up very soon, probably sometime before the end of this week. They have certain bills that they put forth early on, so as soon as they're able to put them on, as soon as they come out of drafting, they usually put them on to be heard in each committee. But it's hard for us as elected officials to actually know what bills are coming forth until they actually put them on the agenda. And I will, at that particular time, whenever I hear something, I will send a message to Bobby to let him know that these things are coming forth. But there's no particular bill that has been put forth or heard to assist Black and brown school teachers and anything like that. No.
And Bobby Henry, and I can ask Lynn this question too. Lynn Jones, Jacksonville Free Press. Have you heard of Black people of color mobilizing and trying to blunt this another attack on schools?
A couple of things. Okay, see, Stacy, before we had a conversation. This was some time before, when we had 5 candidates for one seat. Out of those 5 candidates, 4 of them were sitting. They had seats. 3 in the legislature, two in county government. And so what this has allowed was situations like this. We don't get this information because of our Black elected officials are not there to bring this information bring this information front. We don't get it. And another thing is, there ain't nothing new under the sun. We from the beginning of being educated have been behind this particular black ball, a white ball, if you want to say, not a black ball, white ball, this white oppression. That's why we had to start our own schools, so there's nothing new. So here we are, that are being hit upside the head with a sledgehammer for us to again create our own. There's nothing wrong with us creating our own schools to teach what needs to be taught to our kids, not allowing them to be manipulated and stuff poured into to make them what they're not. We are getting just what we deserve to get when we don't stand up and fight for that which we know is right, and that is the life of our children. Now we have allowed God doggone cameras to come in to dictate and mandate how you're going to teach a child to be something that they're not. So it's our own damn fault when we don't stand up and fight against stuff like this. When we find ourselves selfishly running for damn positions, when you're sitting in a position, it gets to be ridiculous. And here we are, want to blame somebody else. And we need to take a look at what we did to get to this point, to allow this racist ass governor to do what he's doing, in a state. When we allow this to happen, we need to blame ourselves. And that's the truth.
Bobby Henry of the West Side Gazette. Lynn Jones, I want to give you an opportunity to speak to that as well, as far as the mobilization of people of color in Florida.
I agree with Bobby totally. I mean, we have to do something ourselves. I mean, we're always talking about voting. I mean, we vote, we get out for the presidential election and we voting like our lives depend on it. Matter of fact, I think somebody said, if you're not black, you don't vote for me, you're not black. Okay, number one, when it comes to voting locally, we have to get everyone in tune to vote locally in your local elections, because this is what matters. Locally is what really matters to stop these bills. But no, we, like you said, we don't have our own schools. We don't have this. So we're in this position in 2022, and we still have to go by what our governor says, what the president says, but locally, none of these parents really know what's going on. But then when it happens and something happens in the school and it's a recording that you don't like, now you're upset. So we can't win for losing at this point.
Yeah, well, I'm going to turn it back over to the educators. Dr. Primus, Your closing thoughts on this topic of cameras and microphones in schools.
So my closing thought is, when done right, a camera in my classroom would have been fine. But when legislated in order to be a hammer when you didn't support me in the first place is wrong. But this is a call to action for all of the Black press. We need to be informing our readers, our community, of all of the things that are going on. We need to be the voice that gets them to say, this is okay or this is not okay. So Bobby Henry and Lynn, I'm counting on you to put the news out there, keep it out there, put those articles in the Black press, send me videos to go up on our website, everything you can do so we can support you at NNPA, because we have to keep this in the forefront so that our children don't suffer. And I have 8 babies in Florida public schools that are my own prodigy. So I need you right now to do for my kids. And I have a daughter who's teaching down there too. So I need you to do for my kids. I need you to do for all kids, because if it's good for mine, it's good for all. And I need you to support it and keep the voice up and out there.
And before I go to
All
Dr.
right,
Chris, Dr. Primus, I want to stay with you for one quick second. I want to go back to David Youngblood's comment. His last comment said, fight by walking out. It has always worked. We've discussed that early in the program. Just a little quick thought on that, Dr. Primus.
So in my teaching days, I did do walkouts and strikes. Didn't help me any because I got fired for walking out and striking. I had to go into another career for a short period of time. And then they called me back because teachers walked out. And so we did have the power by walking out. I suffered for about 5 years. I opened another company and did other things in professional development for teachers through my own company. But the bottom line is we need to get together. We need to be together. My daughter asked me to come down to Florida and open a school down there because she said, Mama, the schools are horrible. And she's homeschooling her kids right now while being in a building teaching somebody else's kids. And so we need to be able to do what's good for our children. And young blood, walk out. Absolutely. I'll be there on the line with you. But we need to do something, and I need the Black press to keep it up. Don't let it go to a back page. It needs to be on the front page, because our education is our future.
Well, Dr. Chris, and then again, we want to close out with you. Your closing thoughts.
Yes, such profound thoughts by everyone. And again, I'm really humbled to be here. And I just want to underscore that the reason why these videotapes are happening or they're being argued for is to protect white innocence and white vulnerability. They want to protect this notion that Blackness does not really exist in a way that has really helped to contribute to this nation being what it is. And here's the thing: if they're going to record so they can protect white vulnerability, and we know that Black bodies are the ones who've been most vulnerable in schools and out of schools and in communities, then you've got to be able to fight fire with fire. Y'all want to record to make sure that we're getting a certain type of instruction, but guess what? I'm gonna record every instance as a student, and we have to train listen, our babies are the answer to the revolution, y'all. If they want to do this to our babies, then let our babies record every instance where they've been oppressed, harmed, cursed at, kicked, treated poorly. Record that and create a social media storm around what's really happening. You know, if you want to use a mechanism to oppress me, I would use that same mechanism to be able to construct a counter narrative to what's going on. And so, you know, don't be fooled by the weapons of mass distraction. Push back in ways that you know how. And adults like us alone can't do it. We must recruit the babies to be aware of what's going on. This is not for 30-year-olds and up to be able to lament what's going on in schools. It's for our children to be aware that they're being taught in ways by educators who are being robbed of the opportunity to teach them the truth. You teach them babies the truth and let them create a counter resistance to this foolishness.
And Dr. Chris, real quick, Bobby Henry is inviting you to write an editorial for the Black press. Is that something you're up to?
Brother Henry, you say the word and I will write that. But I will also say I done wrote a book, Ratchetdemic, Reimagining Academic Success, where we talk about a lot of these issues. But brother, I will certainly write an op-ed. And in the national Black press, please support this book and this work and these movements that are really targeting the assault on Blackness in contemporary schools.
And Dr. Chris, we do have another minute. Tell us a little bit more about that book, because we talked about it last year on this program. Let's hear a little bit more, because it is an important book.
I appreciate that. So I've written 2 books that are really essential for any parent and any teacher to read. The first one is called For White Folks Who Teach in the Hood, and the rest of y'all too. And that is to these white educators who go into urban spaces to teach Black and brown children with no awareness of our culture, our history, our standards, and our traditions, and want to implement an approach to teaching and learning that does not reflect the beauty and the power of Blackness. And so that book is for all educators, but it's for white folks who teach in urban communities. And then I have a book called Ratchetemic, Reimagining Academic Success. And that book is about reimagining what it looks like to be academically successful. Academic success is not just knowing math and English and social studies. It's knowing math, English, and social studies, and also understanding a knowledge of self, a beauty of Blackness, a beauty of our history, a beauty of our culture and our contributions. And it's for us embracing our young folks that we call ratchet and making them be welcomed back to being ratchet and academic. To be ratchetemic is to be yourself and be genius, to be expressive and be smart, to know science and know how to rap. And if we don't create this new hybrid way of teaching and learning that welcomes the complexity and the beauty of Blackness and intelligence, then we've lost our way.
Dr. Chris, and then you have to come back and join us again on Let It Be Known. We really appreciate you so much. Dr. Primus, of course, we certainly will have you back. You are always welcome as well. You know that. And Bobby Henry, our ace in the hole down in Florida. We really appreciate you. Lynn Jones of the Jacksonville Free Press. And of course, Representative Patricia Williams, we really, really appreciate you dropping by. This week, the National Newspaper Publishers Association was scheduled to celebrate its midwinter conference in Florida. However, because so many of our publishers have to travel from such long distances and the Omicron variant continues to spread, it was best that we postpone it. But Let It Be Known is here for you all week, 1 hour long. You'll see insightful conversations like you saw this morning. So please join us all week long right here, 7:30 a.m. Eastern Time. We will see you tomorrow.